In Western media, Russian women are often labeled as either gold diggers, seeking wealth and security instead of the modern 50-50 relationship model, or traditional wives, dedicated to family and cultural values, the perfect bride. But are these stereotypes accurate? Who is the Russian woman, and what is missing here? Today, I'm niching down from overall Slavic community to one particular group, since I'm Russian with inside cultural info, and other Slavic groups are rightfully fed up with mistakenly being called Russian by Westerners. However, if you think about turning me into the scapegoat, I will block you on the spot. Have a good day, and let's begin the episode, Dandelions. To understand the whole picture, we need to look at some historical context. In ancient Rus, which is a country that existed on the territory of current Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, women had a variety of rights. For example, the high-profile women could sign the legal documents and were integrated into the political life. The stamp of knyginya, which is a noble title, was equal to the man's stamp. The rest of social classes were enjoying the traditional "you are the property of the family" and a caretaker model, but they could own and inherit the property. We see the ideal of a woman in the fairy tale Moroska. Based on this fairy tale, there is a Soviet movie, which we will use as an example today. The main hero was sent to the forest to freeze, and when she meets the deity, she is polite, modest, kind, and downplays that she is about to pass away from cold. On the other hand, her stepsister is very open about her needs and wants. She is confident and is inconvenient. She is the negative character in the story and is later punished for her greed. Yes, her reply to Moroska was rude, but he shouldn't be the idiot who asks a person in the middle of the forest during winter, "Are you cold?" This is fucking obvious. Anyway, you get the idea what characteristics were culturally favored. During the Middle Ages, the borders and territories changed, and the Principality of Moscow was formed. And what a time that was! Being locked inside of the house like it is the pandemic outside. There was an interesting book called Domostroy that defines the structure of the Moscow society. From Wikipedia, Domostroy is a 16th century Russian set of household rules, instructions, and advice about various religious, social, domestic, and family matters of Russian society. Core Domostroy values tended to reinforce obedience and submission to God, the Tsar, and the Church. All you need to know about this book, don't follow its relationship advice. Overall, this book establishes a man as the provider, the wife as a hard-working homemaker who is quiet, obedient, and produces children. Also, a woman couldn't go out without permission from her husband or father. I'm glad I wasn't there, to be honest. I don't vibe with it. With time, the set of women's rights expanded and stayed within worldwide standards at that time. I mean, there were schools for women opening, some official employment became available, women were given the right to inherit property again, and their participation in social life increased compared to the time of troubles, but not as much. However, with the change of the political system to the Soviet Union, things became different dramatically with the full rights for women package. Soviet women would be highly integrated into society, get full access to education, and be encouraged to pursue non-domestic work and higher education. Patriarchy and the social construct that came with it were seen as bourgeois crap that socialism is getting rid of. It worked so well that the birth rate plummeted and the government realized that something needs to be changed. Now, you aren't just a girl. You are a mother, a worker, a comrade, but above all, a mother. Motherhood became a woman's purpose endorsed by ideology, but he was still expected to work full-time. The Soviet government did step in by providing some support for women, such as accessible daycare from 2 months old age, free summer camps for kids, and maternity leave. In addition, considering the short supply of basic goods and household items, taking care of the family was 3 times more challenging. Overall, women ended up with triple duties, such as having full-time jobs, plus caretaker/homemaker duties after regular work hours, plus remaining socially active in the Soviet community. Working mother was the norm in Soviet society, and therefore expected by default. There wasn't any work-life balance, as well as weak protection from domestic violence, since there wasn't any direct law about it. Instead, the police subjected the offenders to a public reprimand at their place of employment, and the crime was dealt with under general hooliganism laws. There was a tax on childliness for both genders in the Soviet Union. On top of that, there was the shortage factor. There were far fewer men than women in the post-World War II period, so any man would do basically. As long as he exists, it's good enough. This made someone a spoiled brat, who got extremely used to women competing for their partner instead of men, and would still bring all the benefits of the traditional family to the table. This attitude is very much alive today. It is painfully reflected in the movie Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears, where a woman Katerina is a single mother and a director of a factory with a decent apartment and a car. She is a wealthy, successful woman. Not everyone could afford a private vehicle in the Soviet Union, and she falls in love with a locksmith. When this guy, Gosha, finds out about her high social status, the tantrums, the red flags, not being grateful that he was even allowed to enter her family in the first place. And they ended up together. For some reason, it was considered a romantic love story. It is important for our discussion to mention that men culturally wouldn't be able to get executive positions at work if they weren't married, since people got married in the early 20s in the Soviet Union. And if you didn't, there is something wrong with you, and you shouldn't get the senior role. Men still brought paychecks for the families, and the family budget to cover living expenses was shared. It would be difficult not to, since being unemployed was illegal back then. During the collapse of the Soviet Union, things changed again. It is a free market, and the economic instability that followed. Do you remember that I mentioned the maternity leave in the Soviet Union? The employer was supposed to pay that to women. Considering that everything was government-owned and public, guess how many new private companies, especially with high salaried positions to offer, wanted to fund the maternity leave? The right answer is not many, and it created an additional barrier for women to make money during the economic crisis. The companies wouldn't hire women to avoid paying them maternity leave in the long run. What if you get pregnant was a part of the job interview. There weren't many job opportunities, so many Russian women were seeking stability elsewhere, which often came from marriages to foreigners. The reverse of the stay-at-home mother as a desirable career trajectory happened. Also, due to the vulnerable situation, women were exposed to human trafficking with mail-order bride services. I talked about the negative consequences of this in the Slavic slave trade episode. Nowadays, Russian women have exciting careers and own successful businesses, but remain on the traditional side, with a man as the family's breadwinner. Families are generally still forming in the early 20s, and expectations are high, but we saw and we learned. The sprinkle movement summarized the situation in the best possible way, and that is why Russian expectations of relationships are in line with the values of this concept, while the 50-50 model is not. Men try to counterback the push, and return to being given the beauty queen who works 9 to 5, cooks, maintains the house clean, takes care of a husband, kids, and of course is ready to sacrifice anything to have him breathing around. In the Russian segment of the internet, the users even came up with nasty nicknames for women who culturally expect dinner dates to be paid for by men. Women are mocked and labeled as materialistic for asking for more than bare minimum. But everyone conveniently ignores how much materialistic benefits that have a real impact on men's lives come with having a bride. For example, promotion at work, since you are seen as more responsible, better chances in a political career, better quality of life with the emotional labor that women tend to do. Even in the days of Domostroy book, when women were the most socially isolated, there was a custom where the wife would appear before the guests and they would evaluate how beautiful she was, and basically how good of a man you were to get the prettiest one. And we, children of the 90s, who saw our mothers bending back with a triple shift, are asking, what are we getting? For many centuries, to have access to basic resources like bank accounts, property rights, and basic civil rights, women needed men. And for many centuries, men would get away with toxic behavior because women couldn't access those resources without men. However, with the ability to have a comfortable life without the obstacles, the question comes, what can you really provide if you are fighting to avoid paying the basic bill, while not shying away from taking full benefits? What balance of family commitments with professional ambitions is possible with that entitlement? What would a woman get? Headache? Anxiety? Stress? Сейчас. No thank you. I place an online order for groceries after work, minding my own business, not inspired to degrade my life just to have a man. Let me tell you, there was a person I encountered who seriously tried to convince me that rich guys don't marry beautiful women from the lower tax bracket anymore, implying that I should settle down for him. Sir, you live with roommates. You don't qualify to speak on behalf of rich people. Also, there is a safer 50-50 alternative for me. Having a female roommate. I can split my bill with a female roommate. I'm not in a romantic or intimate relationship, nobody drains my soul, and the bill cost decreases. Am I a gold digger? Most certainly. Unconditional love is only for cats, and love is never blind for men, so prepare to provide or disappear.
Нет больше Кощея, теперь веселым перком да за свадеб.
Стремени не тронул. Мечом не взмахнул, а уж на свадебку собираешься. По подвигу и награда будет. По подвигу и награда.